Today's video is going to be a bit of a story time. I'm going to be telling you about my health and fitness journey. Now, I did a video similar to this a couple of years ago when I first started my channel. At the time, I was just getting into keto and had not yet discovered carnivore. And I think overall that video was pretty surface level. There's a lot more to my story that we are going to go into today. So if you're interested in hearing about my struggle with weight, amenorrhea, energy, sugar addiction, binge drinking, and more, keep watching. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Kate, I'm a health coach and I post videos on a high-fat, nutrient-dense way of eating. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, feel free to share, and make sure to subscribe. And make sure to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook where I share new posts every single day. I wrote down some notes for this video to try and make some form of a timeline because I find whenever I try to share my story, I end up just jumping all over the place and missing parts. So hopefully we cover it all today. This is definitely going to be a bit of a longer video. I know that I personally really like watching these types of videos and getting a little bit of insight into other people's lives. But yeah, I hope you enjoy it and let's begin. Growing up, I always considered my family to be pretty healthy. We rarely had fast food. If we went to McDonald's for lunch or something, that was considered a treat. I was also very active. I played a lot of sports competitively. I played hockey and baseball. Those were probably my two main ones. So I always had a winter sport and a summer sport. Anyways, the first time I can remember even thinking about or worrying about my weight was around grade 6. At this time, I had a growth spurt and I was probably almost the height that I am right now. So I was pretty tall. I wasn't overweight at all though. I wasn't one of those like tall, really skinny kids. I was just like tall and normal and athletic. But I had one friend who would always just kind of backwardly call me fat. An example of this is, it was Halloween and we were all going to dress up as each other. It was me and my 3 other girlfriends, and I was dressing up as said friend. She was giving me some of her clothes to wear and she pulled out a pair of pants and she said, "I think these are my only pants that will maybe fit you because they're really stretchy, but I don't know." And she would always make just little comments like that. It was just so mean, and the worst part is it wasn't even true. I wasn't even overweight or anything. But anyways, that kind of put me in the mindset that I was like the fat friend, if you will. And yeah, that started a lot of insecurities, none that I ever really verbalized, but they were always kind of there. Now, when I look at what my family was eating when I was growing up, it was carbs, carbs, carbs. We were very much following the dietary guidelines, so lots of whole grains, whole grain pasta, brown rice, low-fat yogurt, margarine, so low-fat, high-carb, whole grains. And at the time, I didn't really give food a second thought. So now, moving on to high school, I can remember always having trouble with portion sizes. And I think this originally stems from, as I said, I kind of thought I was the fat friend, even though looking back, I was not fat in any way, shape, or form at this time. But I always had that in the back of my mind. So what would happen is I would go to eat a meal, I would look at the cereal box, read how much a portion was, 3/4 of a cup or whatnot, and I would perfectly portion that out for myself. I would eat it in about 5 seconds because 1 serve of cereal is not a lot of food at all. And I would still be hungry. So I'd pour another bowl and eat it, still be hungry, maybe have a 3rd bowl. And this was just so mentally draining. And yeah, this got me in this cycle where I was always hungry and I didn't know what was wrong with me. And at this time, I would try to make the healthiest choices that I could. I would always choose whole grain. I never had white bread. I would choose the low fat skim yogurt. If I was eating out, I would always pick like a Caesar salad or something. I would always choose lean chicken, no skin, turkey bacon instead of regular bacon. And as I started to move through school, I actually started to gain weight and move into that overweight zone. I was still playing a lot of sports, mind you, and I even went to a sports-focused high school where you had to complete a fitness test to get accepted. I was working out every day in the fitness program, and then I was playing sports for the school, sports outside of school. I was burning a lot of calories. But at this point, yes, I liked playing sports, but I absolutely hated working out. I would dread having to do the beep test, which we had to do every semester. I hated doing weights. I hated doing any type of running. Yes, I was good at sports at the time. I was good at hockey and rugby and baseball and whatnot, but I wasn't actually that fit. And looking back on it, it was because I didn't push myself when I was working out. I would do the bare minimum that I could get away with, pretty much. And this is just such a bad attitude to have. Anyways, despite all this exercise, I was gaining weight. And I think a large part of this was to do with the binge drinking culture in high school. Every Friday, every Saturday, it was where are the parties at, let's get wasted. And this was not only bad for my physical health, but also my mental health. I was not very confident in high school at all. I did have a large group of friends, and I guess I was in what you would consider to be the popular crowd. But I was so insecure about my weight and about my personality. So to combat this, I would get absolutely wasted at these parties. I was drinking to get past the point of worrying about what other people thought about me, and to the point where I just wouldn't remember anything. I would wake up after one of these nights out and just have such a sense of dread. I would have no idea what I did the night before, or I would have this very, very faint idea. I would feel so embarrassed, and this would only make my confidence worse. Alcohol was a short-term fix, a very, very short-term fix. But yeah, it was just making everything so much worse. And on top of this, when you're hungover, what do you eat? I would go out with my friends the morning after. We would go to Tim Hortons, get a breakfast sandwich. Oh, I have not had a Tim Hortons sausage breakfast sandwich in ages, but honestly, that was such a hangover staple. And an ice cap. Oh my God, how many calories, how much sugar is in even a medium ice cap? Ooh, the amount of those I drank. Anyways, so I get out of high school, I'm in college now, still living at home, still eating the same, still going out just as much, if not more, and still gaining weight. I'm playing less sports at this time, so that's not helping. But I'm trying to go to the gym consistently. I'm doing all the workout classes and whatnot. But for some reason, the scale just keeps going up. Now, this is where we get to probably the first defining moment in my health journey, and that is when I gave up drinking. Long story short, not one of my proudest moments, but pretty much I ended up in the drunk tank one night. My mom and my sister had to come pick me up, and it was mortifying. And I pretty much stopped drinking cold turkey. I think I must have been about 19 at the time, which is actually the legal drinking age in Canada. So I had just reached it and I stopped drinking. Right now I am 26 and I can probably count on probably less than 2 hands the number of times I have been drunk since that night. And honestly, quitting binge drinking, it was like a weight was lifted off my chest. I felt so much better about myself. And I thought that a side effect of giving up drinking meant that I would probably lose some weight. But unfortunately, this did not happen at all. I only continued to gain. I think at my heaviest, I was probably around 180 pounds. Now, at this time, I was just finishing college. I studied fashion business and I wanted to be a retail buyer. That was kind of my loose path that I wanted to follow. And when I was growing up, my family, we vacationed in the Cayman Islands a lot. And if you aren't familiar with the Cayman Islands, it's 3 islands that are near Cuba, and it's under British rule, so it's very westernized. It's actually a tax haven as well. So I was finishing college and my dad's like, why don't you get a job here? You don't have to pay any taxes. You should do this. I started applying for jobs and I actually got one right away working at a high-end retail store, and I was thrilled about this. So I moved to the Cayman Islands. This was the first time that I'd moved out of my parents' house and I was living on my own. And I was so frugal with my money. I didn't want to spend money on like extra snacks or extra food. I really only wanted to buy the bare basics of what I needed to eat and pretty much just save everything else. So I would eat 3 meals a day. I would pack my lunch and yeah, no snacks pretty much. And I ended up losing quite a lot of weight. And I was doing next to no exercise at this time. I didn't have a gym membership. I wasn't doing any running. I was on my feet all day at work, working in retail, but yeah, no exercise, pretty much just cut out snacking, and I dropped a lot of weight. But then I moved back home, back in with my parents, and I fell right back into all my bad habits. And at this time, I was getting really into cycling with my boyfriend, Max. It was a form of exercise that I thoroughly enjoyed. It was so much fun to just go on bike rides with him, pick a destination, get there, maybe grab some lunch, and then bike home. And you could see your progress pretty much every time you got on the bike. It was really rewarding. And my mindset at the time was that because I was doing so much exercise, I could pretty much eat whatever I wanted. And this actually morphed into me making a blog and an Instagram account called Biking to Get Food. And we would scope out the most Instagrammable places to get food around the GTA, which is the Greater Toronto area. We would bike there, I'd get an Instagram photo, eat the food, and then we'd bike home. I'll try to find some of the photos because, oh my God, the food I was eating at this time was Instagrammable, but so bad. Think sushi burritos, huge milkshakes, ice cream, waffles. Oh. So while I was doing probably the most amount of cardio I'd ever done in my life, my diet was probably the worst that it has ever been. Now, as is probably a surprise to no one, I felt absolutely terrible on my bike rides eating this way. So bad. Anyways, so Max and I did a couple of bike tours, as they're called. Pretty much you do multi-day rides to get somewhere. So we went Toronto to Niagara Falls one time, and we also did Toronto to Montreal. And then fast forward, I moved to Australia, very much still into cycling, but cycling in South Australia is nothing like cycling in Ontario. In Ontario, it is so flat. You can go so far without having to go up any real hills. Around Adelaide, it is all hills. And when I first moved here, I didn't have a job. I couldn't even get a job because I was on a visitor's visa. So cycling became my life. I did have a Fulfilled by Amazon business, which is pretty much you sell a product through Amazon, but they do all the work. So I was managing that online. I did have a bit of income, but I didn't actually have a job, so I had a lot of free time. And one day, Max and I decided we were going to do another bicycle tour. We were going to go from Adelaide to Melbourne, which is about 1,000 kilometers. And this is another defining moment in my health journey. I still had the same mindset that because I was doing so much exercise, I could eat whatever I wanted. But this ride was so much more intense than anything I had ever done. There were a couple days, it was so windy. We were moving so slowly. We didn't know how we were even going to get to our destination for the day. And to give you a sense of what we were eating, pretty much every morning we had like little packets of oatmeal. We would have like bananas and dates and whatnot. Lots of carbs to keep us going. Those are supposed to be the best fuel. But what would end up happening is you would ride for an hour and a half to 2 hours and you would just totally crash. This is otherwise known as bonking, and it's pretty much when all of your stored glucose runs out and you're just completely left on empty. And I was very much a sugar burner at the time. I was not in ketosis at all. I was eating so many carbs, so much sugar. Multiple times every day this would happen. My energy would just crash. Same thing would happen to Max, and we'd just be like, oh. We get to Melbourne and I say to myself, okay, I need to get my nutrition sorted. There has to be a better way. There has to be a better way than eating every hour and a half to 2 hours. And this is pretty much when I discovered paleo. So the first book I read was Gary Taubes' The Case Against Sugar. I think actually this one right here. This was just such an eye-opener for me. I was obviously someone who ate a lot of sugar, and reading about it and just how it has such a huge impact on our health, such a wake-up call. I pretty much cut out all refined sugar and all refined carbohydrates cold turkey. And at this time I was eating all whole foods, pretty much nothing processed, lots of fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds. Yes, I was paleo, but I saw the vegan diet as the gold standard and something to strive for. So wherever I could, I would replace animal protein with plant protein instead. Black bean burgers were a staple that I would make, and a couple times I tried to do like scrambled tofu instead of eggs. And in general, eating this way, cutting out all processed food, all refined sugar, I felt so much better. I was becoming obsessed with health and nutrition. I was so against refined sugar. Anything that had added sugar in it, even if it was 0.1 grams, I would not touch it. But then natural sugar, I didn't have a problem with. If something was sweetened with coconut sugar or honey, that was okay, which is very hypocritical, which is something I realized later on. And I was making a lot of healthy desserts at this time, so like raw brownies, sweetened with dates, things like that. And that is actually why I started my YouTube channel. At the start, I wanted to make these healthy recipes and just show my hands on camera. That was really what I had in mind when I first started my channel. I had no intention of showing my face on camera, talking to the camera. I was still very unsure of myself and of my opinions and my thoughts. I didn't really want to put anything out there and risk judgment. So I was doing these recipe videos on my channel, and I don't know what came over me, and this is probably the next defining moment in my health journey, but I decided to film a video talking to the camera and just talk about my channel. That was probably one of the hardest things I have ever done. Watching that video back, I was just cringing so hard, but for whatever reason, I edited it, I posted it, and I put it out there. And it's crazy for me to say this because Now I talk to the camera like it's no problem. But honestly, filming myself, putting myself on YouTube has done wonders for my confidence. And you would think it would be the exact opposite. I was so afraid of criticism and of people attacking me for whatever reason, but my experience has been largely the opposite. If you're watching this, if you're one of my followers, new or old, all of you are amazing. Like, I get so many nice comments all the time, and the response has been largely positive, overwhelmingly positive. Anyways, getting a little bit off track, but you guys are amazing. As I was learning more and more about health, I started reading and learning about how bad the birth control pill can be for a woman's hormones and how it can deplete certain vitamins. And I had been on the birth control pill maybe like 3 or 4, even 5 years at this point. I had originally started taking it because my period used to be so horrible, debilitating. Cramps like you cannot imagine, nausea like you cannot imagine. It was super heavy, it was super long. It was honestly such a nightmare. I had been told that the birth control pill would help with that, so that is why I originally started taking it. And it did help a little bit, like all of my symptoms I still had, but they were a little bit less. But I was all about being really natural at the time, and I didn't want to be taking these synthetic hormones anymore. So I stopped taking it, and immediately I lost my period. Over the next 2 years, I saw a lot of doctors trying to figure out why I wasn't having my cycle. I think I saw 2 general practitioners. I saw a functional medicine doctor. I saw an endocrinologist. I had an ultrasound and did a bajillion tests. I even went to a naturopath as a last resort. But yeah, on paper, everything looked fine. My hormones were all totally normal. I had an ultrasound because they thought maybe I might have PCOS, which I didn't have. With the functional medicine doctor, I did so many tests, and ultimately we found out that I was low in iron and low in iodine, so I started supplementing both of those. Unfortunately, none of this helped. And at the time, I wasn't under a lot of stress. I had a part-time job. I was making YouTube videos, so that wasn't it. I did think to myself, okay, maybe I'm over-exercising. And that was such a hard pill to swallow. I did not want to cut back on my cycling because it was just such a big part of my life and something that I enjoyed so much. But I did end up cutting it back almost entirely, which was so hard. Around this time, I also started hearing more about the keto diet, about how it could increase your energy, how you could go long periods of time without eating as well and not being hungry. And for my cycling especially, this just sounded amazing because, as I said before, when we were on our tours, we had to stop every 1.5 to 2 hours to eat pretty much. And with keto, it seemed that you wouldn't have to do this. So I think I started keto just before I cut back on my cycling. And I was really hesitant to try it because yes, I cut out refined sugar months prior, but I was still eating a lot of natural sugar. And like I said, I was making all these healthy desserts that were still packed with sugar. And I was so afraid to give that up, to give up bananas. I was really hesitant, but ultimately I did do it. And ultimately it was amazing. My energy increased, my sleep got better. As promised, I could go hours and hours without eating and my energy would stay consistent. So I was eating keto for a few months and then I started to fall back into old habits. And by that, I mean, I'd always been a really big snacker. Like I said, I was making these healthy desserts and I started replacing the ones I had made previously with keto desserts, with fat bombs, with things sweetened with stevia. And what I found was that even though these didn't have any actual sugar in them, they were still triggering my sweet tooth and causing me to crave more sweetness, crave more sugar. I could not just have one fat bomb. I had to have 2 or 3. I just keep eating them and couldn't stop. Fast forward a few more months, and this is when I first heard of the carnivore diet, which seemed completely insane to me at the time. I didn't even consider trying it right away. I thought, how will you get vitamins? How will you get fiber? That's just absolutely ridiculous. And while I was currently eating a keto diet at the time, I still had that voice in the back of my head that was saying that meat was unhealthy, that you had to limit it. So I was always trying to eat a wide range of fruits that I could have on keto and vegetables and keep my animal-based protein to a minimum. But more and more people were popping up saying they tried a carnivore diet, and it just took keto to the next level. So eventually I was like, okay, I need to try this. First, it was only for a week, and then a couple months later, I did it for a full 30 days with my boyfriend, Max. It really was a game changer. Keto was a step up from paleo, and carnivore was a step up from keto. My sugar cravings were completely gone. There really isn't anything sweet you can eat on a carnivore diet. I mean, yes, dairy, like yogurt, milk, those are sweet. And honey is technically carnivore, but I wasn't really having any of these. So when you're just eating meat, eggs, fish, there's nothing to snack on. There's nothing to fuel your sweet tooth. And what would you know? When I started carnivore, I got my period back. Now, I didn't just get it back. I got it back with 0 cramps, 0 nausea, so much lighter, and so much shorter. I cannot believe that I suffered with it the way it was for so many years. It was so horrible in the past. Now, I don't know exactly what brought it back. Now I eat an animal-based diet, which is mainly carnivore, and my cycle is a breeze. I think that the extra iron from meat as compared to plant sources of iron helped, and I also think that adding iodine into my diet helped as well. One of the side effects of low iodine is heavy periods, so that totally makes sense. I really didn't eat much seafood growing up at all. I have a whole other video on iodine. Most people are not getting enough of it, so if you want to check that out, I will link it above and you can watch that after. I do think that cutting back my exercise significantly helped as well, although it was almost a year and a half after I significantly cut it back that I got my period back, so it did take a while if that was the cause. And as I started my carnivore journey, this is when I decided that I wanted to become a health coach, and I started studying with the Primal Health Coach Institute. I felt I had so much information to share, and previously I did not realize the connection between nutrition and health. My whole life I didn't know what I was passionate about. Going through school, I didn't really have a favorite subject. I liked clothes and I liked business, so that's why I went into fashion business. But I wasn't really passionate about it. But the passion I felt and still feel with health and nutrition was so strong. I knew that this was my calling. Anyway, so after the month of carnivore, I honestly didn't really know where to go. I didn't really want to go back to keto. I was just in such a good routine. Carnivore was just so easy. Next to no food prep, no food planning, no cravings. It's just so easy. Shopping's a breeze. I did miss a little bit of variety though, so I started adding back in a few keto-friendly plants, avocado, olives, coconut oil, macadamia nuts on occasion as well, and I didn't negatively react to any of these. So how I eat today, I call it animal-based. It's pretty much 90 to 95% carnivore, and then a few keto-friendly plants thrown in as well. And if I'm eating out, I do give myself some more flexibility. I feel like now I'm at a place where I have such a good relationship with food. Throughout high school, I was always focused on eating small portion sizes, and this just got me in this cycle. I was just focused on small portion sizes, which I could never stick to. I could never just eat these tiny portions. And when I first cut out sugar, I was so strict about it. I would not touch anything with sugar whatsoever. Now I try to look at the bigger picture. 0.5 grams of sugar in a food is not going to impact me at all. Eating one meal out with friends that isn't 100% carnivore and maybe isn't even keto, that's also not going to kill me. I know what my triggers are. I know that if I am left alone with a box of chocolates, I'm gonna polish that box off. But now if I'm out and it's someone's birthday, I might have a slice of cake. Right now, this is working fantastic for me. I really do hate the word balance when it comes to diet. I am a low carb advocate through and through, but even I admit that there are situations where carbs are appropriate and maybe even ideal, such as in athletics, for example. Some people can eat sugary foods in moderation. They can have 2 squares of chocolate and not eat the whole bar. If that's you, I envy you. But it's about figuring out what works for you. I do think animal foods are a critical component to our health, and if you cut animal foods out entirely, you're putting yourself at risk. But there are different strategies, and these different strategies can work for different people. Anyways, guys, that's my video for you today, and that is my story up until this point, at least. I knew this video was going to be long, but I didn't know it was going to be this long. So if you're still here with me, you are honestly the best. If you like this video, you might also like this one or this one. And if you're interested in starting a keto or carnivore diet, you can check out my coaching programs here. Thank you guys again for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.